because in 1 minute, Karen Marie Kragelund will deliver her speech about role modeling.
Yep. And I don't seem to be able to start the video. So
now it should be possible for you. Can you check again, please?
There we go. Something's happening. There we go.
Yeah, great.
All good.
Great. Let's wait for one more. Okay.
No worries.
Yeah, it's already no need to wait anymore. So yeah, I can just introduce you really briefly. So Karen Marie, living in Ukraine since 2007, originally from Denmark, brings 25 years of experience working in Eastern Europe, of which 10 years on C-level and major ID companies in Ukraine. She's an expert in organizational transformation programs and projects, specializing in leadership development programs, communication, and stakeholder engagement strategies. I'm stopping share my screen right now, so Karen Marie, the stage is yours.
Thank you. You just took one of my slides there.
Sorry.
Never mind. Never mind. Let me just put it on full screen here. Okay, there we go. And let me just say like this. Should be all right now. Okay. So first of all, thank you, Kirill. It was super interesting to listen to this very thorough walkthrough of the Kanban methodology. It's one of my favorites, so I definitely took something away from that. And to the rest of you, thank you very much for taking your time to spend some hours with us here on this Saturday. I'm sure yesterday was super fascinating as well. So without further ado, my dream scenario today would be that you take some inspiration with you, excuse me, and that today will hopefully open your eyes to something new that you haven't been aware of before, or you have peripherally heard about and you would like to learn more about it. And hopefully you will take today as a starting point for digging further into the topics that I'm talking about. So I will not be giving you a plug and play solution on a silver plate, just so we have the expectations set right from the very beginning. This slide basically Taras already went through with you. Yes, I am living in Ukraine since 2007, and I am very proud to call Ukraine my home. By now, I almost feel half and half Danish, half Ukrainian. So whenever I do these things in Russian, I always start by saying "Мы датчане, мы украинцы." So just to be sure we are on the same page here today. What I have not put on this slide is that in my years in Ukraine, I have actually both worked on the delivery side and on the non-delivery side. So I do believe I have a rather unique view on let's say, how things can actually be mirrored across the middle, so to speak. I'm a great believer in meritocracy. I've worked my way up myself, and I have a big respect for those who start from the bottom and work their way up. And I'm also a great believer in continuous learning, lifelong learning. I'm currently on my third higher education, and I can only recommend you to keep on learning. And the fact that you are actually taking part in today's conference and yesterday as well is a testament to the fact that you are committed to learning. So what am I going to be talking about today? Role modeling and trust. It's this very interesting kind of intangible thing. We kind of know if there is a role model that we would like to follow. We can also kind of feel that when you trust a person, and you tend to be inclined to wanting to do more for this person if you trust. And I can only say it is going to become even more and more important. We are living in the world of machines. And before Facebook renamed themselves to Meta, there was actually a metaverse, and it's only going to become bigger. You can take, let's say, a couple of weeks ago, in the metaverse, you had a real estate company, Decentraland, selling a plot in a virtual world for $2.5 million. And it's coming, it's there already. And the currency that you're using in the metaverse is cryptocurrency. Again, technology. But what we should not forget when we are navigating in this constant world of technology is that we actually need energy to sustain the machines keep on working. The energy has to come from somewhere. We only have one planet so far, although I know Elon Musk is very interested in colonizing Mars, but that's probably a little bit further out in the future. So we need to switch on our human skills. We need to be conscious about what we are doing. And although we have some amazing evolving technology when we look at artificial intelligence, going to machine learning, going to deep learning, so on and so forth, we still need to apply the human skills. That is also illustrated by the fact that if you look at what World Economic Forum is saying should be or is the top 10 skills, if we just look 2 or 3 years into the future, out of 10 skills, only 2 are technology competencies. The rest, we are talking about human competencies or cognitive competencies. If you take a look at, let's say, a deeper look into what are these exactly, let's say 8 out of 10. Yeah, let's park the technology competence on the side just for a little while. Then the 3 words that for me are standing out here, it's thinking, it's analyzing, and it's strategizing. For me, that, let's say, translates into having the ability to take a huge amount of details, look at it, basically look at it a bit like Lego blocks, and then finding out how can you connect all these dots, all these blocks, all these pieces of information into something bigger, so that you can take a holistic view on things and actually see what is the way forward. In that context, it becomes very important to also question yourself. The picture that you are actually seeing, is that actually the right picture? And for how long is it the right picture? If you'll bear with me for a second, let's take five seconds to reflect. When are you at your most creative? Is it 8 o'clock in the morning? Is it 2 a.m.? Is it 4 o'clock in the afternoon? For me personally, my creativity starts around 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And if I really get into the flow, I can actually continue until the next morning. I've had some of my best thinking in that hour. And now I see a comment in the chat. I'm not sure. Okay. Good. You need to be aware when is your most creative moment. Because let's say I want to do some deep thinking. I schedule that 9 o'clock in the morning. I can assure you, I will fail because my brain is just not really functioning at that time. At that time, you do all the little I do all the little practical things. I do the planning of the day. And that's where all the operational stuff gets sorted out. When all that has put aside, then my brain can start focusing on the bigger thinking, the bigger picture. And before some of you out there who know more about neuroscience are telling me that this picture you're actually seeing on your screen right now is kind of old-fashioned, I completely agree with you. This picture here, let me see if I can do this. There we go. This is actually a more correct picture of the brain, because the one you saw previously, the left side is the logical side, is the analytical side, the right side is the creativity, it's the imagination, and so on. That came out in the 1950s. And what neuroscience has actually discovered since then is that we have 86 billion neurons in our brains. So it is actually how these neurons are constantly 200 kilometers an hour buzzing around between each other, connecting things and making sure that our brain work together, the different parts, but also gives us the right signals so that when I'm now lifting my arm, I can do it. If I'm saying, okay, I need to question myself, that's also my brain that is telling me based on some stimuli. And it's the little neurons up there in the mind that are buzzing around and telling me something needs to be done. And it is no wonder with such a intricate highway system of 200 kilometers an hour neurons, that if you look at that system, it's no wonder that sometimes we take a detour. Sometimes the cars are crashing. It's the same thing with our brains. However, the one thing that we do need to really pay attention to is what can we actually interpret the right way and what can we do about it. Emotions, Susan David is one of my favorite authors. She came out in 2016 with a concept called emotional agility. And what let's say the essence of what she has been teaching and her concept of emotional agility is that you decide how you want to respond to things. And the concept of emotional agility actually consists of four, let's say, levels. The first one is that you need to recognize the patterns. So if you are in a situation where, because of speed or because of, I don't know, various external factors, you are reacting in a certain way, but somehow that reaction you are then getting from the people you're interacting with is not necessarily what you would like to have. Instead of starting attacking that person, starts with the person in the mirror. So start questioning yourself. Start looking at what are the patterns? Have I been in this situation before? The next level in her concept is labeling thoughts and emotions. So once you have the pattern, once you have your, let's say, structure of your patterns, then comes the interesting part, starting putting the right labels. And very often, when we get into this very deep reflection, we start noticing some things we might not necessarily be very happy about. At least I had that experience. And the important thing here is then to actually start accepting your own emotions and your own thoughts, and then make the action plan, acting on your values. And this, let's say, long story around the emotional agility, why I'm bringing this to the table today, it's because still, and I'm not just talking Ukraine, I'm talking globally, there is still this tendency to focus on hard skills versus soft skills. Hard skills, those are the skills that makes you go forward in the world. Yeah, fantastic. However, what about the soft skills? And here, actually, I would like to challenge you all to, together with me, to start, let's say, relabeling them from soft skills to human skills. In this technology world, we need the human skills. And if humans and technology can go together, we can actually create something much bigger. Now, you may ask yourself, why is this relevant to me? If we look at the future role of the PMO, then just by looking at the headlines here, Reinhard Wagner came up with this, I think it was about half a year ago. Caregiver. Have you ever seen yourself as a caregiver, caring for other people's well-being? Coming from Denmark, there's this, I can honestly say, in Denmark, there's a very widely, let's say, approach that is used. It is work-life balance. I know it's becoming very, comme il faut, that we have to have this work-life balance, but Danes are taking it to the next level. I remember working with a company where I would say maximum 2 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Fridays, the Danish team had gone home. So that meant that very often when the Americans woke up and if they had an issue on a Friday morning, it would be my Ukrainian team sitting until 8 o'clock on a Friday evening to help the Americans. I think you can imagine how I felt about that situation. But anyway, coming back to this. Caregiver, taking care, having compassion, looking at what is the knowledge that we need to bridge among my team. How can we make it work better? How can we make sure that everyone is performing at their best? How can we, let's say, develop an environment where people are thriving? So if you take that and looking at through the lens of hard skills, I think you can agree with me that we need a lot of human skills, because the technology skills, we can, roughly speaking, sit down on our butt and learn. But the human skills take a lot longer because we need to interact with other people during the trial and error. If I'm doing like this, am I getting the reaction that I would like to have? And if you don't, you go back, you reiterate again. Just like with software development. So if you have a leader who is able to balance all these functions, all these different roles, all these different hats in the right amount at the right time, what do you get? You get someone who's acknowledged as the leader of the year, at least in Denmark. Again, I don't know if there are any football fans among you, but I have to say I reignited my passion for Danish football this year. And it was not least thanks to our coach. He was able to really pick up the team when we faced an unpleasant situation, to put it mildly, when our star player had a heart attack on the football field. The upper pictures, you can see how the players responded and how he was behaving at the next day at a press conference. But 3 weeks later, you had number 14, a 20-year-old kid who stepped in and took over the place from the star player. He scored at Wembley. At the same time, you had the goalkeeper in the green jersey, who himself grew up in the shadow of his father, was one of the best goalkeepers in the world, who has now taken on a very, very demanding role as being one of the pillars of the team. Again, showing vulnerability, showing that emotions are okay. Or to take the bottom picture, the kid with the jersey number 5, he's a small town kid. He didn't even make it to the first team in his club, but he persevered. And today, although he's playing defense, he's actually one of the guys who scores the most goals in the team. Again, because the coach is able to leverage the strengths of the people, and every single person in the team trusts his wingman to deliver. And needless to say, I'm very proud of the team, because they really brought enthusiasm back to the wider audience as well. And that is what I would call a positive role model, someone who's able to leverage the strengths and at the same time be absolutely authentic about who he is. as already mentioned, you've got some 20-year-old kid here, you've got some older people. Of course, I cannot do a presentation like today without touching upon generations. I myself am a Generation X, means I'm born before 1980. But that also means that for all my years as a leader, I have been mainly working with millennials. And if we take an even closer look at millennials, then I would say this picture probably is the best, or it is the best I have seen for quite a while. Because if you, let's say, apply your own sense, apply your own understanding of how to lead on a generation which is younger than you, I would say odds are that you will hit sometimes outside the center. One of the things for me that I was, it became relatively easy, but yet there were also situations where I had to question myself. That is regarding the entitlement and the laziness. But what I want to draw your attention to is that if you want to fight that, then please stay far, far away from hierarchy and busy work and focus a lot more on autonomy and purpose. It's, again, coming back to what I was saying earlier, it's about being curious. It's about questioning yourself. If the reaction you are getting is not what you were expecting, then it starts with the person in the mirror. And even more so, you could say, me as Generation X and the millennials, we still remember what it was to live in an analog world. Today, we are looking at the Generation Z people, digital natives. For instance, I love switching off my phone during the weekend and not look at it. My nieces, which are 17 and 18, it would be absolutely horrifying for them if they had to go offline for a whole weekend. And that, let's say, digital nativeness is something that we need to factor in. But again, combining it with the human aspect so that we have a balanced view on things. But coming back to the purpose and to the autonomy, it creates trust if we are able to show people that we work together, that we are actually caring, that we have a purpose and we are paying it forward. It's a proven fact in neuroscience. And I'm actually a big fan of neuroscience because I like my Excel sheets, I like the facts, I like that it can be proven, because then we can actually start having a conversation about how does it all fit together. It's no longer this touchy-feely, intangible, oh, we think it's kind of like this, you know. If you have the facts, it makes it a lot simpler. And happiness, this very fluffy, loving word that we would, most of us, or if not all of us, would really, really like to achieve, is actually focused around 4 chemicals. We have the endorphins. That is what is masking the physical pain. So, you know, if you're a runner, for instance, then if you keep running, I'm not running running marathons, far from it, but I've heard that those who do, they get this runner's high sometimes. It can also be if, let's say, you are a software developer, you're sitting and coding and you're late at night and you're really in the zone, and this is just really giving you this boost of energy. That's the endorphins that are kicking in. The dopamine, the so-called happiness chemical, that is the one that helps us reach our goals. That is the one that keeps us motivated. But please be aware and pay attention that this is also a little bit, what we say, a little bit dangerous, because it is actually also the chemical which fuels addiction. So if you are a smoker that can't get rid of smoking, if you are an alcoholic that can't get rid of alcohol, you name it, then it is the dopamine that basically keeps you there. As I label them here, I call them selfish chemical. That means they are under our own control. But on the other side, we have the selfless chemicals. That is where we are dependent on other people. The serotonin, that's a social chemical. It is what we're getting from bonding with other humans. It's also Simon Sinek calls it the leadership chemical. And it is, let's say, a boost that we get when we have, let's say, public recognition. Like, for instance, right now, I'm pretty sure my brain is giving me serotonin because I'm here paying it forward to you. The oxytocin, oh, that's the love chemical. That's the one that we feel when we are trusting someone and they trust us back. And we are having this really mutually reinforcing, loving, very, very nice feeling. But as always, there is a joker. There's the cortisol. The cortisol is the stress hormone. And before, let's say half a year ago, I would probably have told you there is bad stress. But the fact is that there's bad stress and there's good stress. So there is this, let's say, level where, okay, now my deadline is getting closer. I need to get it done. And then first, I'm very much working towards a deadline. I like that. That's where I really do my best work. However, if the procrastination goes on for too long, it can tip and then it becomes bad stress. So finding that balance again, coming back to what Susan David was talking about, the emotional agility, knowing when enough is enough and when it's too much. It's very, very important to be aware of that. Also in a team setting, what can you do in your team if you are the leader to make sure that your teammates are not struggling too much? What can you do, coming back to as a caregiver role, to make sure that they actually feel at their best to perform at their best? I would very much recommend you to read Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last. It is a lot more, let's say, deep dive into these chemicals and how they, let's say, evolve and what kind of impact they have, if you're interested around this. Personally, this is one of my passion projects, so I'm very thrilled to share some of it with you today. But of course, I cannot give a lecture like this or keynote like this one without giving you some numbers, because again, being a role model, it's all good. Having some trust, fine. However, what does it actually mean in numbers? Paul Zak is a scientist who has been studying this for many, many years. I believe it's 20, 25 years by now. And back in 2017, he published some groundbreaking work where he had actually compared people working in low trust companies and people working in high trust companies. And the numbers speak for themselves. Fewer sick days, 40% less burnout. And we're talking 2017. Can you imagine what the number must be today after 2 years of COVID and increasing burnout? If you work in an organization where there is a high trust relations, I'm pretty sure that this number would be significantly higher. Higher productivity, who doesn't want that? 50% higher productivity. You know, as a leader, if you create trust at a level where people feel psychologically safe to be creative, to be innovative, they start working more. They even get more energy. They feel less stressful. Again, if you are interested in digging further into these numbers, I can only recommend the works of Paul Zak and his fellow scientists. There's some very, very interesting stuff in that one. But Again, the numbers are fine, but what does that mean for you? It's about the mindset. It is about asking yourself, is it done by me or is something done to me? If your behavior is, let's say, done to me, then, as I've written here, reactive, constantly in the defense mode. Everything is a drama, you know. I think in Russian we call it chaika management. If you do that, well, don't be surprised if your organization or your team, for that matter, is behaving in a way that is not exactly what you wanted them to do. Or maybe you did. And then maybe, let's say, the room for improvement is much larger. But ideally, we take charge of things. We look at what am I doing? What is done by me? Asking questions, looking at what can I do proactively to make the team respond to me and bringing ideas to me. If you are interested in let's say, challenging yourself a little bit, then I put the link here where you can actually dig a little bit more into it and start questioning yourself. Because the thing about trust, if you put a little drop into the ocean, it actually makes rings. So the more you put in there, the more, well, let's say the higher is the likelihood that you will get the same back or even more. And here I would like to make a nota bene, because I know I'm from Denmark. I know that I'm coming from a different culture where we have a high trust culture. It was, let's say, a cultural challenge for me in the beginning in Ukraine, where I was used to the fact that, okay, if you say you're going to do it, you're going to do it. A handshake is as good as a written deal, as a written contract, signature. That was not what I was met with back in 2007. It took me a while to adjust, but at the same time, I do believe, and I could see it in the team surrounding me, that by acting, let's say, from with a Danish mindset, I was also challenging the Ukrainian side to change. And again, broaden and build. We learn from each other. There are different components of trust. Again, as I said from the very beginning, I'm not going to give you a, let's say, plug and play solution on a silver plate today. But these building blocks are some of the building blocks that if you apply them, you have a very high likelihood of building trust relations in your team. The curiosity one, I've already talked extensively about that one. Compassion, being authentic about walking the talk. If you say you're going to do something, do it. But at the same time, show integrity, take risks. If you don't risk something, you haven't tried enough. And this is not my quote. But it is very, very important to, let's say, look at things with an open mind. If in a situation your teammates are behaving in a way which you find very strange or you find counterproductive, then there might be something else happening behind the curtain, which you are at that very moment not aware of. I had a situation a few years back where I was doing a town hall in the company I was working with, and I was presenting an initiative that we were supposed to start working on. And one of my people were very vocal about, let's just say, negatively vocal about this initiative. So after the meeting, I called him over and we went into the meeting room and just say, and I could see that he was expecting to be scolded. He was expecting, now Karen is going to come and tell me F, Y, Z, and so on. But what I did, the opening question I put on the table was, look, Sasha, you have not been yourself lately. What is going on? And you could almost see how the shoulders came down, because instead of confronting him with some negative attitude, I was actually caring about him because something wasn't right. The shoulders came down. He actually shared what was the issue, and it was something personal. We found a solution. I helped him on it, and he became himself again. And that's only because instead of confronting, taking the negative attitude at face value, I actually started digging into it. So again, with my sincerest recommendations, use the same approach. In this context, it is very important that you increase your awareness of what is your responsibility and what is not your responsibility. It is what you say. It is how you behave. It is what you do. It is how you embrace your own mistakes. It is what effort you put into it. That is what you can take responsibility for. The most important thing to keep in mind is that you cannot control other people, regardless of whether you are using positive leadership or you are leading by fear. All of them, I would say, needs to be in a balanced view. What you can do is you can impact, you can put some little nudges when it comes to how other people act. You can help other people grow their ideas. You can address their fears by having a caring attitude. And if you keep doing that, coming back to the broaden and build of trust, then eventually your team will start coming to you with their issues because they trust that you will actually help them. And once you have reached that deep level of trust, then you don't have to ask when you have a deadline or you have a release which is about to go down the drain. People just do it themselves because they know that you would do it for them. Again, the team becomes higher than the individual. So some practical advice as for how to do it. What do I need to do in addition to what I've already been talking about here? Be curious. Be forever curious, not just about others, but also about yourself. Question yourself. Am I actually the one with the right solution here? It is challenging your own assumptions, challenging your own biases. It is honestly believing that you are not always right. One brain might be good, two brains think better together. It is looking beyond your, let's say, normal sphere of what are sources of knowledge. It's not just for the fun of it that design thinking is becoming a buzzword, because the end user, how is he going to perceive it? Looking at the human aspect of things and factoring that into everything you do is something that will, I can assure you, lead to a much better outcome, not just for you, coming back to the oxytocin and the serotonin, but also for the team. With that in mind, I want to leave you with a quote. This one I coined about half a year ago when I was starting to do my own research in more detail around trust. And it can come as no surprise to you by now, after about 40 minutes together, that curiosity for me is the alpha and omega. It takes curiosity to learn, but at the same time, you need to realize that in order to learn, you also have to admit to yourself that there's something you don't know. And if there's something you don't know, then it's perfectly okay to say, I don't know. I can't answer that. Also in front of your team, we are not know-it-alls. We can't know everything. But if we all pour and pool our knowledge together, we will be able to make a much better result for everyone. And standing in front of people and saying, I don't know, it's scary. I've done it myself several times, but believe me, every time you do it, it becomes easier. And when you're standing in front of a team and you're saying, I don't know, what do you think? Then it is actively listening to what they're saying and take that information and use it because it is the right thing to do. Thank you very much. Here you will have my contacts and I will be happy to continue the discussion with you at any time. Taras, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Karen Marie, for your presentation. It was really insightful, at least for me, for sure. Couple of questions to underline some key moments for me, at least. As you mentioned that it is more and more important to develop the soft skills over the hard skills, or at least how I understand this idea. Meanwhile, several people and several scientists that I've been reading mentioned that this is not something that is possible to be taught, let's say. And I mean, it can be trained, but even the result of the training won't be predictable enough. What do you think about that?
Well, the short answer is I completely agree. For me, training is, let's say, a half-hour training or a day training or something. That's a great place to start, but that's only the trigger of your curiosity, the trigger of, okay, this is the new area that is opening up for me. For me, training, it's like a driver's license or even a certificate, you know. You get the driver's license, that doesn't mean you can drive the car. So if you do a one-day training on human skills, fantastic. I've done the course. That doesn't make you an expert. But what it does is that it gives you a foundation that you can then start building on. And then it is, I'm sorry to say, trial and error. It's an iterative approach. I can assure you where I am today, I'm a very different person from who I was back in 2007 when I came to Ukraine. There has been many ups and downs, and I may sound like an expert, a know-it-all. I'm also learning. You know, it's a constant learning process every single day.
Can you please share your experience in developing learning and training frameworks or development paths for leaders or managers in a specific company or department? Yeah, without names, obviously.
I always take an individualized approach because, again, I may have some assumptions about how it should be done, but it might not necessarily fit that specific company. One of my go-to frameworks is actually the Cynefin framework. I'm a big fan of Dave Snowden, and for me, it always starts with questionings, interviewing people on all levels in the organization to find out where they are, what they expect, and then I would say apply my own intuition as for feeling where are the weak spots that, at least for the first iteration, that should be left on the side. Because it takes time to build this psychological safety, both when you are in a one-on-one session, but also if you're in a team session. So once I have gathered all these, let's say, data points, then comes the thinking work, sitting down and structuring into a customized program for this specific company. I had one client where they had a leader of a function, and there was some quite big discrepancies between how this person saw herself and how the rest of the organization saw her. So I agreed that we would do a 360 evaluation. So I made a questionnaire, interviewed basically her subordinates, her superior, and HR, and consolidating all that information into a one-pager. I'm very adamant about a one-pager because then you can have it in front of you and you don't have to shuffle papers around. Makes it a lot easier. And I think we had a 4 to 5 hour session where I basically facilitated with her to link her own perception with how others perceived her. And yes, my brain was pretty mushy after those 4 or 5 hours because I used a lot of myself to ensure that she could connect the dots. But during that week, from when we started on the Monday, on the Friday, she presented her own development plan to the CEO. And it was, she had made a huge step forward during those sessions we had during that week. If that answers your question.
Probably. It was not mine, but probably
Okay.
it was a good
Otherwise.
Yeah. Another question from the chat. Do you believe that tolerance always beats talent?
Tolerance beats talent. It depends, I will have to say. It's the MBA answer, I'm sorry. I would, if we look at people like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, my past with Siglum, I have to mention Torben Maigard, of course. They would not make it to where to the level they came to without being, sorry to say, a bit of a bastard. I have not worked with Elon Musk or Steve Jobs. Don't worry about that. But from what I've read, that they also have a pretty special leadership style. And sometimes, yeah, you do have to tolerate, let's say, some genius, weird behaviors, but there is a limit, of course. Verbal abuse is an absolute no-go. It's easy for me to say today, but yeah, that's a really hard question, actually. But I will have to say it depends on the situation. You need to have this go-getter approach to make it in the world, but at the same time, you cannot be a complete bastard, you know.
Yeah, maybe I can add more details to this question. It was not about how you tolerate the inappropriate behavior to you. It was more about the comparison between naturally talented people and something that in Russian we call усидчивость, meaning that you put just a lot of effort and you basically move this stone even if you have no natural talent to do so. So the question is, as I felt it, was more about like, do you believe that basically, and then let's call it blindly, the people without actual talents but with a lot of effort and a lot of work invested into some field, will it beat the natural talented person in this field?
They can catch up. Again, coming back to number 5 on the playing defense on the Danish national team. He was not good at playing football back when he grew up. But look at where he is today. He kept on persevering. He kept knocking on doors. He kept putting in more and more effort. So he grew his abilities. Again, having a growth mindset, believing that nothing is finite. There is an infinite world out there. You just have to keep on going and trying and being open for then the feedback that you're getting and taking the knowledge and keep broadening and building your knowledge. So in that context, I do believe that people without a natural talent can definitely develop some capabilities that, yeah, probably in some cases can actually beat the natural talent. Because, you know, if well, today I'm doing this in English, but if I was doing it in Russian, that's I can compare, let's say, with the language thing. You know, I learned Russian the hard way, sitting on my butt and learning grammar. I was so happy to get rid of German grammar, and then I voluntarily picked Russian, which is twice as bad. But nevertheless, you know, I persevered because I wanted to learn the language. I do have some natural talents when it comes to languages, but still, for me, in my, let's say, artistic brain, to look at, okay, systems approach, that was hard, very hard in the beginning. But today, I don't really pay attention. It's just something that comes natural. So again, coming back to natural talent versus developing talent, you can develop your talent. It will take longer, it will take more effort, but you know, if you put together two people, one with, let's say, a natural talent, who is thinking outside the box, who's not looking at the systematic approach, and pairing this up with a person who's got the systematic approach, then it could be one amazing combination. I have no doubt. I think together that would be much better than standing on their own.
Thank you. Another question from the chat. What are the most efficient ways to build teams' trust?
Walk the talk. It sounds alluringly simple, but it is really about being yourself, being true to yourself. It is saying out loud, I don't know, if you don't know. Saying out, I will find out, and you will have the answer by tomorrow, 10 o'clock. Then you deliver the answer at 9:55. It is being true, how would you, okay, let me rephrase. To this person who asked this question, what would it take to earn your trust? What behavior do people need to project to you in order for you to trust them? If you write that down and saying, okay, if I should trust a person, this person should do A, B, C, D. There you have your list. Because if another person does this to you, that makes you trust this person, then odds are, if you behave the same way, this will resonate with people around you. I know it sounds kind of fluffy and kind of straightforward, but it's really about, let me just see if I can find the slide here. Where was it? Yeah, this one here. I hope you can still see everything on my screen, but it's about being reliable. It's about, yes, I commit to something and then you deliver. It's about showing, okay, I couldn't do this, but this is what I'm going to do instead. Showing the integrity, living up to your word. Sometimes it's taking a plunge, it's taking the risk. Yep, I trust you, I give you the benefit of the doubt. It's a combination of all these. I can, on the risk taking, I have actually a funny story. I was president of Kiev Lions Club, which is a charity organization. And through my contacts, I actually managed to convince Shakhtar to donate a football match. I had nothing on paper, nothing in writing. I think I had an email, but I had a handshake. And we put this football match up for auction at our charity event. We raised quite a significant amount of money. And I still wasn't sure that match was actually going to take place. So I took a huge risk on my reputation. One fine day, I get a call saying, okay, Shakhtar is going to be in Kiev. They are playing Dynamo Kiev in a few days. we have a window before that. So if you can arrange it, this is where the match is going to take place. So of course, all men on deck, finding the people who had actually paid to play against Shakhtar. We had an absolutely fabulous match. And I even made it on the sports news because they had some PR people there. And it was still, there was nothing in writing. I had no signature, which is a bit of ludicrous if you think about it, in the Ukrainian context, maybe also others. So I took a bottle of champagne and gave to the head coach, and a bottle of cognac and gave to the guy who had actually facilitated, and that was it. So it's really taking the risk. Sometimes pays off, yep, sometimes you fail, but that's life, right? So yeah, write down for yourself, what does it take for you to be able to trust a person? And then start following those points yourself, and then it will come.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. And maybe the last question for now. You showed brilliant research results about performing in low trust and high trust environments.
Yeah, that one.
Can you elaborate with maybe a couple more things, maybe from this research, maybe from your experience, on how to define the low trust companies and the high trust companies?
Well, I don't have the scientific definition that Paul Zak is operating with. That I'm sure if you look up the article, there will be a lot more elaborate information about that. However, in my unscientific definition of low trust companies is where you don't believe that your colleague will take a bullet for you, roughly speaking. Where, okay, why would I want to go the extra mile? Because this person will never do something for me in return. It is where, if to put it even more on the spot, leading by fear, where there's no psychological safety, where people are afraid of speaking up. They think if they voice their opinion, they're going to get a slap, figuratively, where they feel, why would I want to do something? Because I'm not being listened to anyway. Those are the kind of attributes I would use to describe a low trust company. Where in a high trust company, you voice your opinion because you know it will be appreciated. You walk the extra mile because you know that your wingman will do the same. You know that if something is going to happen, you're not going to be alone sorting it out. That, again, as I said, this is unscientific, and this is, the context, you can also put it into a national context, like countries wide, you can put it into organizations as we're doing here, or we can put it into a person-to-person context. That's as good an answer as I can give you right now.
Nice. Thanks a lot for your keynote. It was really insightful, and I hope it was as helpful for everybody as it was for me. Thanks again for your time. Thanks again for your time, and I wish you a good day.
Thank you very much. You too. Take care.
Bye.